In the year of our Lord, a relatively small game known as Progress Quest released for public use. The game presents itself as a next-generation computer role-playing game where you create a character and the game plays itself out without any human interaction whatsoever. Made as a parody to the popular MMO genre at the time, this small game would be the very first of its kind. What would be a relatively unknown genre would soon garner immense popularity and success in 2013 with the release of a bite-sized game known as Cookie Clicker. This is the idle game, sometimes referred to as an incremental or clicker game. It's a genre where, unlike almost every other game, much of the gameplay is automated. This usually comes in the form of a rising increase of resources, the manner of which also serves as the game's core progression. For instance, in Cookie Clicker, you can perform manual clicks to earn cookies, the number of which you earn cookies by doing this increases through upgrades. Even when you don't play, plenty of idle games can keep going, accruing even more resources even while you're sleeping. And ultimately, the core experience will be the continual rise of numbers that should, theoretically, continue infinitely with no stopping point in sight. Of course, that would be a mathematical impossibility given how much you'd possibly have to accrue just to even come close to the game's overflow. That's the basic premise of any idle game, but as stated, only the basics. The rising meteoric success of Cookie Clicker would start a chain reaction that kickstarted an entire genre filled to the brim with mobile and PC games. So what exactly has changed since then? Fast forward to 2016, which is when the genre would undergo an evolution that would be adopted in plenty of idols today. Idle Heroes would be generally considered the very first gacha idle game. Usually in idle games, the only progression that existed was higher numbers. Make as much as you can in as little time as possible. Idle Heroes, however, introduced linear stage progression in the form of a campaign where players earn experience, gold, and equipment needed to upgrade your team's abilities and strength. Much like a gacha game, Idle Heroes features the concept of summoning heroes as you build your team, unlock new modes of the campaign, and perform daily content to earn rewards. Naturally, the idle portion of this comes in the form of earning your resources while you're not playing. Now, the gameplay is still all automatic for the most part. The heroes use their abilities automatically, and the player is generally left to watch everything unfold. Of course, it's up to the player to make use of their team and ensure that synergies, positioning, and such are taken accordingly. The concept and idea of an idle gacha would only grow in popularity on a global scale thanks to the release of AFK Arena. If you're around in the gaming sphere, chances are you might have come across an ad for this game.
So amazing!
What the?
How are you ranked so high in AFK?
How can this noob be better than me?
What makes you an expert at AFK?
It's as terrible and low budget as you can imagine, but that's a topic for another day. Despite the terrible ads, many can cite AFK Arena as the game that allowed the subgenre to enter the mainstream. In terms of gameplay, it carries a lot that was featured in Idle Heroes. The main thing to note is the beautiful art style that could appeal to a wide audience. It's easy to identify mobile games that have a certain style, and it's that style that can make all the difference between mild curiosity and slop detector. Alongside the improvements to the formula introduced prior, it would help pave the way to letting people know about the subgenre. And it's here where I believe it's necessary to talk about the important question at hand. Why? Why would anyone play an idle game? The definition of gameplay is usually consistent with the idea of interacting with the game. You push the buttons you press. People associate gameplay with the idea that you're an active participant in the game. When you're focused on the game, when you make good gameplay decisions, you feel good, aka your brain creates dopamine. This is why many don't really treat narrative-heavy experiences such as visual novels as games. But again, that's a conversation for another day. Let's go to reason number one as to why people enjoy idle games: the numbers. People like bigger numbers. It is a human response to say that bigger is better. We generally associate bigger numbers as a positive because for the most part, it's applied to concepts such as money and quantity of possession. And it's that very aspect that's one of the genre's biggest strengths. The gratification that you feel in most games is not only simplified, but you feel the progression instantaneously. There's this addicting quality to wanting the number to increase substantially. Games like Borderlands 2 feature the ability to see damage numbers, but it's the way the numbers are presented that can become a feedback loop for progression. Which ties us into the second reason for people enjoying idle games: simplification. Idle games are best known for being extremely simple to understand and play. Sometimes gamers aren't looking for complex mechanics and endless customization options. At the end of the day, if it's something they don't have to take a while to understand and get into, then that's alright with them. Most idle games have almost no barrier to entry with the exception of the more modern gacha idle games, which prides itself on their strategic complexity mixed with simplistic gameplay. Of course, what ties all of this together is the third reason for people enjoying idle games: automation. It's true that people want to play a game and actually interact with it, but that doesn't mean that automation ruins the fun people have with idle games. If anything, just watching things in motion has its own brand of fun. While most people prefer actually causing the cool stuff to happen through skillful gameplay, plenty of people are just as fine letting the game do most of the work. Take the traditional office worker. They're stuck in the office and they have almost nothing to do. They need to look busy for the higher-ups, and sometimes their options are extremely limited. They can't exactly just bring in a Switch or a Steam Deck, much less their own personal laptop, if they even own one. So, these sorts of games offer an experience that's able to allow them to not only multitask, but can also tab out or put away their phones if need be. And it's that convenience that's reason number 4. Idle games are, for the most part, one never-ending grind. But because you can always get resources even when not playing, it becomes less of a responsibility on the player. Every time you sleep, you wake up a bit richer. Who doesn't want to be rewarded after being woken up from a dream? Not even that, but there aren't many games that would get away with running by itself while you go get dinner. Lastly, the final reason for people playing idle games is the puzzle aspect. This might be a strange thing considering the nature of these games, but it makes sense. In fact, we have an example we can pull up for this. The recently released Sword X Staff is an idle gacha where you create your own character that can pick between 2 classes. The important part is that the gacha of this game is essentially the skills you can equip onto said character. Since combat is automated, it becomes necessary to plan out your build and think carefully on how you want things to go. You can't just put in any skill you want willy-nilly and expect things to progress very far. Maybe at the beginning, sure, but gacha games always have a difficulty point somewhere, and that's when you have to start trying. Despite the positives mentioned, there's a reason why idle games are more of a niche genre than anything. For one, the amount of slop idle games on the market is quite staggering. Considering how easy it is to make one and fill it with microtransactions, one can easily mistake the genre for being nothing but slop. Another obvious fact to point is the gameplay is definitely not for everyone. There's nothing wrong with not being into automated gameplay. People prefer taking charge and pushing the buttons they press. For a lot of gamers, it's hard to imagine playing a game where most of it is automated. The idea of a game just playing itself is, well, that just sounds asinine, doesn't it? But maybe, just maybe, by watching the action unfold, it's almost as if you reap the rewards without needing to be a skilled, sweaty elite gamer. At the end of the day, if you're into the satisfaction of near progression and dopamine rush from a high number count, then idle games may give you the fun you so seek. You never know if the instant high may be what you need in your life. And with that, thank you very much for sitting through a presentation on idle games. If you're looking for more of this kind of content, just make sure to like and subscribe, and make sure to let me know in the comments below. Thank you again once more, and have a wonderful weekend. Peace.